Standing outside the massive glass double doors of the downtown registry office, I looked down at the freshly stamped certificate in my hand and realized I had just signed my life away to a total stranger. Less than 24 hours ago, my entire world had been completely obliterated by the one person I trusted most, leaving me completely broke and homeless. Yet here I was, stepping into a high-stakes corporate battlefield alongside a ruthless billionaire who wanted to weaponize my professional skills for his own survival. My name is Chloe, and until yesterday, I was just a senior financial investigator who prided herself on uncovering complex corporate fraud while completely missing the massive deception in my own living room. For 6 long years, I poured my soul into a marriage with a man named Trevor, believing every single promise he made about our future together. I was the reliable one who kept her head down, worked late hours, and saved every spare penny to build a beautiful life. The nightmare truly began 3 months ago, when Trevor came home trembling, claiming his logistics consultancy firm was facing immediate bankruptcy due to a predatory lawsuit. He begged me to sign a standard asset protection waiver, swearing it was the only way to shield my hard-earned savings from his aggressive corporate creditors. Because I loved him unconditionally, I signed the document without auditing the fine print, completely unaware that I was actually signing away my rights to our house. Within 48 hours of getting my signature, Trevor filed for divorce, emptied our joint bank accounts, and left me with absolutely nothing. That is how I ended up sitting in the far corner of a dimly lit downtown cafe, watching my husband laugh with a wealthy, elegant woman named Victoria. She was married to Julian Vance, the absolute titan of the Midwestern real estate industry, and the luxury designer wrap she wore cost more than my entire yearly salary. Suddenly, an imposing man in a tailored charcoal overcoat sat down directly across from me without asking, placing a heavy manila folder on the table. It was Julian Vance himself, and he quietly explained that his wife Victoria had been running a massive corporate embezzlement scheme with Trevor for over a year. He showed me the forensic proof that they had already funneled over $1 million into a fraudulent shell company managed directly by my husband. Julian needed an uncompromised financial expert with legal authority to audit the company books and expose the fraud before his corrupt board of directors forced him out. Because Illinois' corporate law granted specific auditing rights to spouses, he offered me an immediate civil marriage to secure my legal standing inside his empire. Looking across the room at Trevor celebrating his victory, I knew my days of crying were officially over, and I agreed to his terms. By 10 o'clock the next morning, we were legally married, and I walked into the spectacular, high-rise headquarters of Vance Development as the newly appointed Chief Financial Officer. The tension in the executive suite was incredibly thick, especially when I confronted the head of accounts payable, a defensive woman who had been secretly facilitating Victoria's unauthorized transactions. I demanded total system access immediately, giving her exactly 20 minutes to hand over the digital keys or face outside legal counsel. By late afternoon, I had uncovered a secondary network of fraudulent vendor invoices that proved Trevor was laundering the stolen cash through an offshore account registered under his elderly mother's name. The sheer scale of their arrogance was staggering, but I worked through the night to build an absolutely airtight case that would stand up in federal court. When Julian brought me dinner late that evening, we ate in a focused, comfortable silence, united by our shared mission. The real crisis hit on Thursday afternoon when an internal whistleblower warned me that Victoria had scheduled an emergency investor meeting to vote Julian out of his own company. If she succeeded in removing him as operational chief executive officer, my authority as financial officer would vanish, and all our hard-earned evidence would be locked away in endless litigation. I knew I had less than 24 hours to convince 2 massive private equity investors to change their minds. I met the first investor early Friday morning and presented the undeniable forensic evidence, securing her immediate agreement to boycott the corrupt emergency meeting entirely. The second investor was much harder to convince because of his deep personal loyalty to Victoria's wealthy family over the past decade. However, once I showed him the official federal fraud referral I had filed with the authorities that morning, he realized the massive reputational risk and backed away. Without the necessary investor quorum, Victoria's planned corporate coup failed completely before it even started, forcing her to hire a prominent criminal defense team and surrender her company shares. Desperate and facing total financial ruin from defaulted business loans, Trevor began making frantic, weeping phone calls to my voicemail, begging for mercy. I refused to answer his desperate pleas, choosing instead to hand every single recording directly over to the federal prosecutors. Standing by the window overlooking the Gray City River, I realized that betrayal can either destroy you completely or forge you into something incredibly dangerous and strong. Trevor thought he had married a quiet, predictable woman who would accept defeat. But he forgot that I look for hidden secrets for a living. By trusting the wrong person, I lost my old life, but I gained an unbreakable resilience and a powerful new future built on absolute truth.